Husband is spending money on affair partner alot. I don't know what to do. Help. My name is Lisa Carter. I'm 35 years old, a nurse at a local clinic in Chicago, and, until recently, a loving wife to a man I thought I knew inside and out. His name is Adam Carter, 38, a successful real estate agent with a charming smile that once made me fall head over heels. We've been married for 10 years, and we have one child, MIA, who's 8 and the light of my life. But let me tell you, no amount of smiles or years together can prepare you for the kind of betrayal I discovered this summer. It started innocently enough. Adam had been acting different, a little distant, more glued to his phone than usual, brushing off my questions with excuses about work stress and dealing with difficult clients. I trusted him. I truly did. But one night in July, when he left his laptop open, everything changed. I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. I was just cleaning up the living room while he showered. But there it was, on the screen, an open email from someone named Alyssa. The subject line read, "Thanks for helping me and the kids again, red heart." My heart sank, but I clicked, and there it was. Line after line of gratitude for the money Adam had sent her, for the groceries, for the new car he'd apparently bought her. A car, for a woman I didn't even know existed. I could hardly breathe, but I kept reading. Alyssa Johnson, 34 years old, unemployed, living off food stamps, and raising 3 kids, none of whom, by the way, are Adam's. I learned more about her in 10 minutes of reading than I wanted to know. She's been struggling with some mental health issues and, apparently, Adam had swooped in as her knight in shining armor. Only it wasn't shining, it was my bank account funding this twisted fairy tale. The shower stopped. I panicked, shut the laptop, and sat down like nothing had happened, my heart pounding so loud I thought Adam might hear it. He came out, kissed me on the cheek, and asked what was for dinner. Dinner? I could barely see straight, let alone think about food. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there beside him, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction we'd had in the past few months. The late nights at work, the unexplained cash withdrawals, the sudden insistence on opening a separate credit card for emergencies. It all made sense now. The next day, I decided I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I started small, checking our bank statements online. What I found made me sick. Thousands of dollars had been funneled out of our joint account in the past 3 months. Groceries, car payments, even rent for a new apartment in Alyssa's name. He was paying her rent while we were still married, but the breaking point came when I followed him. One Friday night, he said he was meeting a client for drinks. I waited until he left, then grabbed my keys and tailed him. My hands were shaking the whole time, but I needed to know. Sure enough, he didn't go to a bar or a restaurant. He went to a rundown apartment building on the other side of town. I parked down the street and watched as he carried bags of groceries inside. Moments later, a woman came out to meet him, smiling like he'd just saved her life. That was Alyssa. She looked nothing like what I'd imagined, tired, frazzled, wearing sweatpants and a stained hoodie. But the way she looked at him, it was like she worshipped him. And that's when it hit me, Adam wasn't just cheating. He was playing the role of savior, throwing money at this woman and her kids like he was their personal ATM. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the car and confronted him right there in the parking lot. "Are you kidding me, Adam?" I shouted. "Who the hell is she?" He froze like a deer in headlights. Alyssa looked between us, confused and clearly panicking. I didn't know you'd be here," she stammered. "You didn't know?" I snapped, my voice shaking with rage. "Did you know he's married? Did you know he has a daughter at home?" Alyssa looked horrified, but Adam? He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Lisa, calm down. Let's talk about this." "Calm down? Are you insane? You've been sneaking around, spending our money on her, and you expect me to calm down?" The argument escalated quickly. Alyssa fled back into the apartment with her kids, and Adam started begging me to keep it down and not make a scene. A scene? I wanted to burn the whole place down. People were watching from their windows, and I didn't care. He deserved to be humiliated. When we got home, I told him it was over. Divorce, non-negotiable. He begged me to reconsider, swearing he'd cut ties with Alyssa, but I didn't believe a word of it. And guess what? I was right not to. Because even after I filed for divorce, even after I froze our joint accounts, he kept supporting her. He opened a new account behind my back and started funneling more money her way, over $20,000 at this point. And here I am, stuck in this nightmare, trying to figure out how to stop this madness while protecting MIA and myself. This is far from over. You'd think catching your husband red-handed, funneling our family's money to his affair partner, would be the worst part of this nightmare. You'd be wrong. What came next took my already shattered world and turned it upside down. After filing for divorce, I thought I'd seen it all. Adam's crocodile tears, his flimsy excuses, his pathetic attempts to paint himself as the victim. Lisa, I was just trying to help her. She's in a bad place. What kind of man would I be if I didn't? Spare me. But I hadn't even scratched the surface of his insanity. A few weeks after the blow-up in that dingy parking lot, I decided to meet with my lawyer, Karen Hayes, a fierce, no-nonsense divorce attorney in her 40s who seemed ready to tear Adam apart in court. She told me to dig up every financial record, every receipt, every text message I could find to build my case. I spent hours poring over his bank statements, credit card bills, and email accounts. That's when I found the real kicker. Buried in the emails was a lease agreement, not for Alice's apartment, but for a second property, a townhouse in the suburbs, fully furnished, with rent paid 6 months in advance. The tenant's name? Alice's. But this wasn't just another petty gesture. No, this place was nice. Way too nice for someone living on food stamps. It even had a private backyard and a playground nearby for her kids. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. Adam wasn't just paying for it. He had co-signed the lease. His name was right there next to hers. My husband, the man who couldn't even remember to pick up MIA's favorite cereal half the time, was playing house with another woman and her 3 kids. I confronted him that very night. He had no idea I'd found the lease, and I was ready to watch him squirm. Care to explain why your name is on this? I asked, throwing the printed document onto the kitchen counter. Adam's face went pale. Lisa, it's not what you think. Not what I think. You're paying for 2 places for her now? Do you have a secret family I don't know about? Is this some sick fantasy where you pretend to be a dad to her kids because you're too lazy to be one to your own daughter? He stammered, tripping over his words. She needed a better place. The apartment wasn't safe for her kids. It's temporary, I swear. I'm just helping until she gets back on her feet. Oh, really? And when exactly is that going to be? Next year? 5 years? Or maybe never because you've turned her into your little charity project? His excuses were pathetic, but this wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the sheer audacity of what he'd done. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd built an entire life with this woman behind my back. And then came the twist. The next day, while picking MIA up from school, I ran into someone I never expected to see again: Alice's ex-husband, Derek. I recognized him instantly from the pictures I'd found on Alice's social media. He was leaning against his truck, waiting to pick up his kids. We exchanged an awkward glance, and before I could stop myself, I walked over. Hi, you're Derek, right? He looked confused but nodded. Yeah, do I know you? I'm Lisa, Adam Carter's wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. His face darkened. Oh, him. It didn't take long for us to start talking, and what Derek told me blew my mind. Apparently, Alice wasn't as helpless as Adam believed. In fact, she had a long history of finding men to rescue her, usually married ones. Derek explained that she pulled a similar stunt during their marriage, cheating on him with a coworker and bleeding him dry before leaving him. She's manipulative as hell, Derek said. She knows exactly how to play the victim. And if your husband's caught in her web, good luck. She won't let go until she's drained him for everything he's worth. I felt sick. This wasn't just an affair, it was a calculated con, and Adam had fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. Worse, he wasn't just putting our finances at risk, he was putting our future on the line for a woman who'd done this before and would do it again. That night, I sat down with Karen and laid everything out. The lease, the money transfers, even Derek's warnings about Alice. We need to hit him where it hurts, I told her. Karen's eyes gleamed with determination. Oh, don't worry, we will. But as furious as I wasn't ready to leave it all in the hands of lawyers. Adam wanted to play the hero? Fine. I'd show him what happens when you try to save someone who doesn't want saving. The wheels in my head started turning. It was time to teach both Adam and Alice a lesson they'd never forget. After my meeting with Karen, I couldn't sleep. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, it all played on repeat in my mind. But that conversation with Derek had ignited something in me. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was determined. Adam had turned our life into a circus, but if he thought he'd get away with it, he was sorely mistaken. I spent the next week gathering every piece of evidence I could. Every email, bank statement, and text message that screamed Adam is a sucker went into a neatly organized folder. Karen was already gearing up for court, but I had a different idea brewing. I wasn't just going to let a judge decide Adam's fate. No, I wanted him and Alyssa to feel what it's like to be played. The first step? Hit them where it hurts most, the money. I had full access to Adam's financial accounts, thanks to the fact that he's a creature of habit who never bothered changing his passwords. Rookie mistake. I logged into his credit card portal and saw the latest charge, a $2,300 payment for new furniture for Alyssa's townhouse. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. I immediately disputed the charge, claiming it was unauthorized. Next, I called the credit card company and lowered his spending limit to just $500 a month. When they asked why, I feigned concern. My husband's been overspending lately, and I'm worried about his financial health. It wasn't enough to ruin him financially, though. Not yet. I needed to set the stage for something much bigger. That's where Derek came in. I called him later that evening, a little nervous but mostly excited. "Derek, I have a plan," I started. He chuckled dryly. "Why am I not surprised?" We met at a coffee shop the next day to strategize. Derek was more than happy to help. Apparently, Alyssa had taken him for over $50,000 during their divorce, and he'd been itching for payback ever since. "Whatever you've got in mind, count me in," he said with a grin. Together, we devised a plan to expose Alyssa for the manipulative fraud she really was. Derek still had a few connections in her life, friends, old neighbors, even her landlord from years ago. We started digging into her past and discovered a laundry list of unpaid debts, eviction notices, and restraining orders. But the real jackpot came when Derek reached out to one of Alyssa's former boyfriends, Todd. Todd was a goldmine of information. According to him, Alyssa had a pattern of targeting vulnerable men, draining their finances, and then moving on to the next victim. She'd even convinced one ex to fake a medical emergency so she could pocket donations from a GoFundMe campaign. "She's a professional scam artist," Todd said. "If your husband's wrapped up with her, he's in deep." That was all I needed to hear. With Derek and Todd's help, we compiled a dossier on Alyssa's scams, complete with photos, screenshots, and testimonies. The pièce de résistance? A video Todd had secretly recorded of Alyssa bragging about how she could make any man her personal ATM. But I wasn't done yet. My next move was to set a trap. I knew Adam couldn't resist playing the savior, so I crafted a fake sob story and had Derek pass it along to Alyssa through a mutual friend. The story was simple: a single mom in the area was about to be evicted and needed $10,000 to keep her home. If Alyssa was the manipulative leech I knew she was, she'd see this as an opportunity to squeeze even more money out of Adam. Sure enough, it worked. Not 2 days later, Adam called me, furious. "Lisa, why did you block the joint savings account?" I smirked, though he couldn't see it through the phone. "Because it's our money, Adam, not your slush fund for Alyssa's sob stories. She needs help," he snapped. "Her kids could end up on the street. Then maybe she should get a job," I shot back. "Oh wait, I forgot. Scamming people is her job." I hung up before he could respond, but I wasn't finished yet. The final step was to expose everything. All the lies, the scams, and the receipts. Karen and I planned the reveal meticulously. She would handle the legal side, filing subpoenas to force Adam to disclose every cent he'd spent on Alyssa. Meanwhile, I'd use the dossier to drag their dirty laundry into the light, ensuring that neither of them could escape the consequences. The stage was set. All I had to do now was wait for the perfect moment to strike. The moment finally came on a crisp Friday morning in court. It was the preliminary hearing for our divorce, where Adam's finances were expected to be laid bare. Karen had done her part, filing motions and subpoenas, and I sat quietly beside her, dressed in my sharpest black blazer. If Adam thought he'd slither out of this mess unscathed, he was about to get the shock of his life. Adam strutted in, trying to look confident, but the bags under his eyes told me he hadn't been sleeping well. Good. Beside him was Alyssa, dressed like she was auditioning for a soap opera, tight dress, exaggerated makeup, and a faux innocent expression plastered on her face. The sight of them together sent a wave of rage through me, but I kept it contained. This was my show now. Karen began her cross-examination with a question as sharp as a knife. "Mr. Carter, can you confirm that you've been financially supporting Miss Alyssa Richards and her 3 children since June of this year?" Adam squirmed in his seat. Well, yes, I've helped her. She was in a tough spot, and Karen cut him off. "Did this help include covering her rent, utilities, groceries, and a $15,000 car?" His eyes darted to Alyssa, who suddenly looked very interested in her fingernails. "I was just trying to." And Karen continued, raising her voice, "Did this help also include paying for a second property under Miss Richards' name, which you co-signed for without your wife's knowledge?" The courtroom fell silent. Adam stammered, yes, but. Karen turned to the judge. Your Honor, I have documentation of every transaction, along with proof that Mr. Carter has drained nearly $25,000 from the marital assets to fund his affair partner's lifestyle. The judge leaned forward, her gaze icy. Mr. Carter, is this true? Adam mumbled something incoherent, but before he could gather his thoughts, Karen delivered the knockout punch. She walked over to our table and held up the dossier, the one Derek, Todd, and I had meticulously compiled. This, Karen said, her voice ringing with authority, is a detailed record of Miss Richards' history of financial fraud, manipulative behavior, and prior scams involving multiple men, including video evidence of her bragging about how she exploits men for money. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Alice's head snapped up, her wide-eyed innocence replaced with pure panic. Adam looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Karen wasn't done. Your Honor, we request that Mr. Carter's financial support for Miss Richards be immediately ceased and that the court award my client restitution for the marital assets he has squandered. The judge nodded. I'll take this into consideration, but this behavior, Mr. Carter, is deeply troubling. But the courtroom drama wasn't even the best part. The real revenge happened after the hearing. As we were leaving, reporters, yes, actual reporters, gathered outside the courthouse. I tipped off a local journalist about the hearing, framing it as a story about financial abuse and manipulation. The moment Adam and Alyssa stepped outside, they were swarmed. Cameras flashed, microphones shoved in their faces, reporters firing off questions. Mr. Carter, is it true you spent $25,000 on your affair partner, Miss Richards? How do you respond to allegations of fraud and manipulation? Alyssa tried to cover her face, but it was too late. The cameras caught everything. Adam stood frozen, caught between anger and humiliation. I strolled out behind them, calm as ever. One reporter turned to me and asked, Mrs. Carter, how do you feel about today's revelations? I smiled sweetly. Justice has a funny way of finding its mark, doesn't it? But the final blow wasn't public humiliation. It came later that evening, when Alyssa's landlord called Derek, furious. Apparently, Adam's 6-month advance payment had bounced back after I disputed the transfer. With no funds to cover her rent, Alyssa and her kids were given an eviction notice. And Adam? His financial accounts were frozen pending the divorce proceedings. For once, he couldn't come to Alyssa's rescue. Later that night, I got a text from Derek. She's moving back in with her mom. Guess the scammer got scammed. Well done. I poured myself a glass of wine, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. Adam and Alyssa had played their game, and I had beaten them at it. Still, the fallout was far from over. There was one more act in this twisted play, and I was ready for it. It's been 3 months since the courtroom showdown, and let me tell you, karma works faster than I could have ever imagined. Adam and Alyssa's carefully crafted house of lies didn't just collapse, it exploded, leaving them scrambling in the rubble. And I've been sitting back with a front row seat to their unraveling. The eviction notice I set in motion was just the beginning. Alyssa was forced to pack up her faux glam life and move back in with her mother, who, according to Derek, is just as fed up with her as the rest of the world. Rumor has it, the two of them have screaming matches nearly every night, and Alyssa's kids are starting to realize their fun new stepdad was nothing but a bad investment. And Adam? Oh, Adam. Where do I even start? The court granted me restitution for the money he spent on Alyssa, plus an additional penalty for financial misconduct. He's been ordered to pay me back in monthly installments, money that, thanks to Karen's genius legal work, comes directly out of his paycheck before it even hits his account. The cherry on top, Adam lost his promotion at work. Apparently, the public humiliation from the courthouse scene made its way to his boss, who decided that a man with such questionable judgment wasn't exactly leadership material. He's still employed, but he's been demoted to a position with half the salary. He can barely keep up with his court-ordered payments, let alone fund Alyssa's lifestyle. Speaking of Alyssa, her past caught up with her in the most spectacular way. Remember that dossier Derek and I compiled? We sent it anonymously to several of her ex-boyfriends, her former landlords, and even her kids' school. One of her exes is suing her for unpaid loans, and another is filing for defamation after learning she'd spread rumors about him to gain sympathy from other men. But here's the kicker, the ultimate twist of poetic justice. Derek and I uncovered one final gem in Alyssa's history, a series of fraudulent unemployment claims she filed years ago. We tipped off the state's fraud department, and they launched an investigation. Last week, I got word that Alyssa has been charged with welfare fraud. She's now facing fines and potential jail time. Adam, of course, is stuck in the middle of her chaos. He showed up at my door a week ago, looking disheveled and desperate. Lisa, he started, his voice shaky. I made a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I want to fix this. I crossed my arms and raised an eyebrow. Fix what, Adam? The $25,000 you threw away? The years of lies? Or the fact that you abandoned your family for a scam artist? I was stupid, he said, his voice cracking. She used me. She never loved me. I should have seen it sooner. I shook my head, more disappointed than angry. It's too late, Adam. You didn't just break my trust, you shattered it. And for what? A fantasy? I hope it was worth it. He stood there for a moment, silent and defeated, before finally walking away. Now, I'd like to say that was the end of it, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. A few days later, I got a call from Derek. You won't believe this, he said, laughing. Guess who's trying to move in with Alice's mom? Your ex-husband. Apparently, Adam's financial situation is so dire that he can't even afford his tiny apartment anymore. He's been begging Alice's mom for a place to stay, but she's having none of it. Derek sent me a photo of Adam sitting on a bus stop bench with 2 suitcases, looking like the poster child for poor life choices. As for me, I've started to rebuild. The divorce is finalized, and with the financial restitution, I was able to pay off our remaining debts and secure a new home for myself and the kids. It's not easy starting over, but every day feels lighter, freer. Last week, I treated myself to a little celebration, a spa day followed by dinner with Karen and Derek. Over dessert, Karen raised her glass and said, to Lisa, for proving that revenge really is a dish best served cold. We laughed, clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. Adam and Alyssa thought they could take me down, but they underestimated one crucial thing: I'm a fighter. They played their game, and they lost. And as for me, I'm just getting started.